It is 7 o'clock and I'm going to call our financial plan hearing to order. And just so everybody is aware, the meeting is being recorded. So if you miss something or you want to look back, it will be on YouTube and on our website. And I'd like to welcome you here this evening. And if you have any questions, you'll have an opportunity at the end to ask any questions that you may have. So basically, right now, I am going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to ask our CAO to start our presentation off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And what we're going to do is let everybody know that the meeting will also be recorded not only on our regular recording, but also on Zoom. And I'm starting the recording now.
And I did forget one thing.
Recording in progress.
I just wanted to mention that most members of council are here this evening, but Councillor Belanger is away and he is attending via Zoom. So, okay, go ahead, Deepak, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a PowerPoint that I will walk through on our agenda, and I'll just share this for our Zoom meeting. Share. There we go. So, thank you, Madam Mayor. What we have today is that we're presenting as part of the public hearing, which was, this is our financial plan that has already been presented at an open house earlier in last week, and now we're moving forward with a public hearing for this financial plan. This is the 2025 financial plan, which enables us to manage our expected growth, infrastructure, request for services while we're keeping the tax rate at sustainable levels and protecting the environment. The financial plan also takes into consideration the unexpected challenges the municipality may face due to uncertain times we are presently encountering. After a review in February of 2023, when the new council was elected, a current strategic plan was reviewed and a new strategic plan was enabled. Council determined a vision, mission, and values that will guide the decisions of council for the next 4 years. The vision, as you can see, is a welcoming, diverse, and growing community supporting safe lifestyles for all ages to live, recreate, and prosperous. As a growing municipality, growth needs to be managed and facilitated, and it can be an important contributor to sustainable tax levels for residents of the municipality. There are also challenges and demands for increased service levels with increased responsibilities placed on the RM by provincial legislation and limited revenue growth. As previously has been reported, population growth estimates were conservatively based on the 2021 census, which showed 6.5% growth. The estimated growth could be over 8,000 additional residents by 2036 in the RM of St. Clements. Along with that, our goals were established, which helped to the vision and missions, helped to establish the goals which guide the financial planning and service delivery to our citizens. To succeed, we need to grow and attract young families, and the 5 goals are to help with that is the comprehensive plan for roads, drainage, water and waste, affordability, targeted sustainable growth, anticipated future needs and amenities and services, focusing on recreation as a key destinations, build diverse, resilient, and sustainable communities. And to do this, we need to provide the amenities and services people are seeking when deciding to purchase or build a home. We need to create an environment that can offer the type of housing diversity that can help our youth stay in the community and allow our citizens to age in their home community. As to the first goal, which was comprehensive plan for roads, drainage, and water, this year, the financial plan continues to support the commitment to funding for the hard surface roads of 1 mil rate per year. This year, in addition to the 1 mil rate per year, an additional 1% is being proposed for the next 10 years to develop a sustainable road plan with, at the end of 10 years, having 2 mil rates per year devoted directly to hard surface roads in the RM. The specific projects for each year for the hard surface roads is funded from this commitment, and this allows the RM to develop a sustainable plan and asset management associated with all our hard surface roads in the RM. In 2025, we will be continuing with 1.1 mill rate, which translates to about $1.2 million, or exactly $1,233,357.40. What this means is that it allows for the identification of roads, and a road plan has been established. The road plan has been provided with the agenda today, as well as it'll be published online for all our residents to see in an open and transparent manner, which lays out the construction of which roads in the next 10 to 20 years. Now, in 2025, we're also looking at a commitment to address construction on previous hard surface roads. In 2023, Council identified $3.5 million that will be spent over the next 2 to 3 years on constructing previously hard surface roads for $3.5 million, and that's moving forward this year. So, as a total for major projects in 2025 for hard surface roads are Rebec Road from Coronation to McKay, Quarry Road, Donald from Henderson to Rebec. The total of these projects combined this year will be $3,758,093. We're also looking at implementing traffic safety improvements in East Selkirk at approximately $2 million that will be put forward as part of and funded through the tax incentive program. Along with this, increased drainage and operating budget has also been added for brushing. For a second year in a row, increased by another $30,000 for a total of $70,000 this coming year for drainage purposes. Increased budget for grass cutting has also been added for roadside mowing for $40,000 to be able to use tractor to mow further and deeper into the ditches. We're also increasing the budget for the gravel road maintenance and reconstruction by $315,000 this year, which includes additional gravel road maintenance / reconstruction, dust control, and brushing. We're anticipating we'll be able to do 3 miles of roads that would be reconstructed to bring them up to better condition. And as a total for the entire maintenance and operating of our roads, which would be all our other roads outside of the hard surface roads, is increased to $1.6 million, $1.7 million, which is exactly $1,685,000. Along with that, we've identified multiple road drainage projects because of the additional funding, and those projects have been listed. The ones that have been highlighted in yellow on this PowerPoint are the ones that we're still waiting for drainage licensing from the province of Manitoba. As you know, Council, all drainage projects must be surveyed and designs submitted to the province of Manitoba, who then approves them and gives us a drainage license to be able to do those works. So, moving on with the strategic plan goal for comprehensive plan for roads, drainage, water, and waste. The next part is the expansion of our infrastructure of water and wastewater infrastructure. This all started with 3 phases identified in 2021. Originally, the RM secured some $5.5 million in borrowing, and by first utilizing 4.3 of previous borrowing authority, whereby reducing the impact on the RM. This previous $4.3 million of additional borrowing was due to the fact that there was additional grants received, a $2.7 million grant to do drainage in the south, as well as there was additional funding from ISIP to build the St. Clements Activity Center, and so that required less borrowing on the part of the RM. This allowed for the first phase, which was the regional utility infrastructure of the Henderson wastewater project, which brought twin force mains from Lockport to the East Selkirk Lagoon, allowing the opportunity to close down the Lockport wastewater treatment plant, which was aged, and so these funds were leveraged with the province of Manitoba, so for a total project cost of $9.7 million. Phase 2, which was approved with the Manitoba Water Services Board in 2023, took $1 million from reserves and then $2.25 million in borrowing, which further leveraged 3.25 million provincial grants for a total of $6.5 million, and that was to decommission and put in a large lift station for the sewage treatment plant in Lockport, and water lines to Lockport from East Selkirk were put in there, as well as a new lift station that was already identified for the total of this project. Now, any of the funding that was identified for borrowing would be paid back through connection fees, as all utility costs are recovered back to the taxes from users who are utilizing those utilities. This year, we are completing the last phase of the water and wastewater, and which is a part of the water project, which requires an additional $6 million, but $3 million of that is coming from the Manitoba Water Services Board, reducing the impact on our residents and overall connection costs. These costs had already been determined in determining the connection fees that were approved by Council in 2023. Construction of the water reservoir in Lockport is $4 million. The well field expansion will allow for $1.5 million, and then ability to be able to share with the Arm of St. Andrews water to continue to do a regional infrastructure sharing, which are also one of the requirements for receiving Manitoba Water Services Board applications, and that allows us to share with the Arm of St. Andrews and recover all our costs associated with it, to possibly developing further sharing with it. Finally, moving on, the comprehensive plan for roads, drainage, and water. The Arm of St. Clements is also implementing a significant regional initiative this year, which is the Lebo Class 1 regional landfill through the development of an additional landfill cell. The landfill is reaching the end of life in basically it's filling up on that cell that's there, and the landfill serves as a critical infrastructure component in the Winnipeg metro region. It was built many years ago as a level 1 and required a certain level of waste management. Because it was built as a regional landfill in the area, it does offer regional support. So various communities and municipalities are using it, including Broken Head Ojibwe First Nation, the Arm of Lac Du Bonnet, the Arm of Broken Head, and the town of Beausejour, who pay for tipping fees to be able to put garbage there, and then it works as a regional landfill. The new cell will enhance the landfill's capacity and process region's 10,000 tons of annual waste, while also protecting the environment, as well as leachate management and modern drainage systems that aren't necessarily done in lower level landfills, so it's better for the environment. An application was also made for this particular project with the Manitoba GROW grant application, and it was approved for 50% funding again, and so a $4 million project is only going to cost the RM $2 million this year. With this comes the next goal, which is the goal of affordability. As part of that, keeping costs affordable for ratepayers, the RM continues to implement cost recovery processes, and again, they'll be looking at various processes to look at user fees, as well as the RM is looking at completing a master utility rate study. Now that all the utilities are complete, as part of phase 3, we'll be able to do a master utility rate study and determine what the rates are. Some rates were determined based on previous costs that were running. As an example, the Lockport treatment plant, which was very expensive to run compared to a lagoon, and so in some cases costs are going to be less. More users on the system gives an opportunity to also reduce utility rates. So what we'd be looking at is doing a master rate study for the entire region area. Along with that, the council has looked at the fact that we are looking at increases in our taxes, mainly due to a reassessment, and there's a reassessment throughout the entire province, and with that, much of the municipalities outside of Winnipeg have had significant increases in assessment rates. With that, council re-examined the mill rates, and this year they will be reducing the mill rate 13% from 10.4 to 9.1. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to reduce taxes. What it does is it helps to offset those tax dollars. So moving on with that, we wanted to talk a little bit about what does that mean. So the RM has continued to see inflationary increases, just like many other municipalities throughout the region and throughout Manitoba, especially in southern Manitoba. We've seen significant increases in Winnipeg, Brandon, Portage la Prairie, all the municipalities around the RM St. Clements, and we're not any different, that we're seeing some of those increases. And there's also risks associated with tariffs and other things that are still up in the air, and council is doing a conservative approach of making sure that they can reduce the impact on our residents, but at the same point make sure that we're financially viable. In order to provide affordability to address those inflationary increases, council last year and the year before froze the mill rates at the 2022 level at 10.4, and with the assessment increase in the RM St. Clements, we'll be producing a mill rate of 13% lower from 10.4 to 9.1, as I just mentioned. As part of the 3-year budget planning that council committed to in 2021, council had projected a 2% increase in previously and on an annual basis, and in 2025 it had projected a 2% increase. What we're looking at is probably a little slightly higher than that, depending on how you look at it and what percentage you're looking at. Depending on the rate of inflation, it's an impact on operations. The 13% decrease is still an overall increase in the budget. So just because there's an decrease in the mill rate doesn't mean that the budget needed to run the RM. And I'll talk a little bit more about what does that mean. How much is coming from taxes, how much comes from other sources of revenue as well. The 2025 is a reassessment year, and we've been told that it's about a 23% average increase on the assessments. So that doesn't necessarily automatically translate to a 23% increase in taxes. It's 23% in the assessment, and depending on where certain properties fall and what the mill rate is, and that makes a significant difference. A small percentage increase difference can be a very significant difference in what the actual tax dollars are. It is anticipated that the property assessment increase and the resulting tax increases and the reduction in the mill rate will help reduce the overall impact, but not eliminate it. It is difficult to determine the exact offset, as the reassessments are based on market value, and some properties may go higher and some may go lower than the average increase, and some may stay flat. The province, so what we do is we base it on the entire assessment base, not on individual based properties. The province of Manitoba has also changed the school tax rebate program from the 2024, where the school rebate is no longer applies to properties that are not principal residents. So if your property is not a principal residence, you will not receive the tax rebate on your tax bill from the school tax. In addition, the $350 has also been eliminated by the province of Manitoba, the tax rebate, the universal $350 that was there. And so, and on top of that, we have recognized that there are significant increases coming from the school divisions. As the school divisions have already established their budget, they submitted their numbers to us. And so Lord Selkirk School Division has a 16% increase in school taxes. Sunrise School Division has 12.8% increase. River East Transcona School Division has increased by 29%. So those are very significant changes that the municipality has zero control over. So what do the taxes pay for, and what are they? So in reviewing taxes that are on households in St. Clements, the municipality has only one significant source of income, which is property taxes. A review of a median household income of $86,912 was used based on the 2015 dollars from Statistics Canada. This was based on the 2016 census, which showed the average household income of about $104,503 in St. Clements. A comparison against the income tax and the education levy sources of revenue for the province was used against the municipal portion of the property tax, estimated to be about $1,511 is what we're basing it on the new average household, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And so the above chart shows if that $1,511 was collected for the municipal portion of the taxes, this is how it would be distributed. The distribution goes to different areas such as public health, economic development, environmental health, which is basically waste management, our landfill and so forth. Transportation services, which is all our gravel roads, hard surface roads, snow clearing, dust control, all that work. Protective services, as you can see, is a fairly significant part of the budget as well. And then general government services, which includes funding for various services. And then we have fiscal services. It's a large portion of it, but that is where the RM takes taxes and then allocates them to the various reserves, as well as receiving money from other sources. And that is used to be able to pay cash to capital so that we're not borrowing for heavy equipment and fire services and large costs. So what it is are setting up of various reserves in order to be able to save money and to keep the costs in the RM low as possible. So that goes to show if that $1,500 was divided by those percentages costs for those general governments. So based on these numbers, you'd be looking at transportation services, $317 of that $1,511 go towards providing all those transportation services throughout the RM. As you can see, we are constantly looking at these costs and trying to make sure that we can keep them at a reasonable level. As you can appreciate, transportation services is the one that I usually use as a quick analysis, saying for $317, you're getting all the roads, hard surface, gravel roads, all the gravel programs, all the dust control, all that work being done throughout the entire RM. So moving on from that, this is moving to the expenditures by services, the distribution of taxes. This is a significant change. As you can see, the school portion of the property tax bill is 58%, while the municipal tax portion is only 42% to cover the costs for all the services that a municipality provides are only being collected at 42%. So, but we have to recognize that not all funding comes in, and I should have matched the colors, I apologize for that. So blue is now green on the other chart. And as you can see, the municipal portion of the taxes is part of the revenue. As I mentioned, we take a significant part of the taxes and we put it into savings accounts like reserves. So that's where we transfer from those accumulated surpluses and reserves in order to do a total budget for the RM. So there's other revenues, collection of fees. So fees collected from the landfill are included in that $7.9 million, as well as fees for other services that are put in there. And so all that together is what the total municipal revenue is. Municipal taxes is only a portion of that fund. So how do we compare to other municipalities? So that's a regular question that council reviews. And so we've been doing an ongoing review since 2020 of the various municipalities around us. In 2020, council had made a commitment of modest 2% increases per year, and then in 2022, they froze that mill rate at 10.4 without doing the 2% per year. And this year, because of the significant tax assessment increases, has reduced that by 13%. But as you can see, what you'll see is Selkirk. An important thing to note is in 2024, you'll see a significant change in Selkirk. I wanted to make sure that it was clearly understood because Selkirk modified their taxation because they created two parts. One part was full taxation, the other part was separated out for protection as a special service levy for police and protective services. It's still collected as part of the taxes, but they were showing it differently. So we just wanted to highlight that. This year, they've added a special service levy for transportation services. And so both will be implemented, and it's transitioned over 4 years. So they're putting in a special service levy, taking some of that portion out of the general taxation and moving it out. So it's still within the 20 mill rate level, but it's just separated out separately. And so in order to show it best, this year I do have the exact number from Selkirk that I could read out if necessary, but they are showing a general mill rate at 7.046. which would be 2.6% decrease in their mill rate. And they're seeing similar types of increases in assessments like all these municipalities listed here. And so, yes, Councillor?
So would it be 20.458?
I think it is 20.458. Let me just double check here, and I'll tell you exactly what it was. They are this year at 20.458.
Yes.
Thank you. Good math, Councillor. And Broken Head, as an example, is a similar municipality size as us. Although it could be argued one has more services than the other, but generally speaking, we're similar type municipalities. Their mill rate was at 12.205, and this year they're doing a 1.8% decrease to 12.025. And so Alexander, another one that's of significant that they did recognize in talking with their CAO, one of the biggest challenges Alexander has is last year, all the residents that received the rebate of $1,500 will no longer be receiving it because it's mostly cottage country. And because of that, Alexander had to look at impacting some of their services to be able to not have as much of an impact, although it is a school division cost, but the ratepayers still feel the brunt of it. Lac du Bonnet, as an example, only did a 7.5% decrease. Stonewall, 15.7% decrease, but Stonewall is a significantly smaller area. This is the town of Stonewall, smaller budget as well, and smaller area to cover for roads and all those other costs. St. Clement's, 13%. We're at the same level as some of these increases. We're definitely a significant decrease compared to everyone else. And at a mill rate level, so there's many ways of looking at mill rates. One is, mill rates are used to determine what is the amount of taxation that's needed to be able, based on the number of households you have, and farm property, all those things that come into factor. And with that, the mill rate determines what the total revenue that's needed. But if you look at mill rate at $100,000, because some municipalities compare it at $100,000, we're at a very competitive level because most of the municipalities are either higher or the ones that are lower, it's easily identifiable why they're lower. Springfield is an example, which is a similar size municipality, only a 1% decrease. St. Andrews, I'm still verifying this, but at this point I've listed what they've said to me. It was 1.69%, rounded up to 1.69% increase on top of the assessment increase. Now I'll be verifying that with them as we move along. East St. Paul, a 13.3% increase, who have seen a 29% increase in school taxes in their area. West St. Paul, again, seen a significant increase in their area for school taxes, is seeing a 14.6%. Now, West St. Paul is also a very fast-growing and significant community. East St. Paul, West St. Paul, Springfield have significant tax bases where they have commercial and industrial lands. And those commercial industrial lands are taxed at a 65% rate as opposed to a 45% rate. There's a significant more dollars in those communities, and yet we're competitive with them. And West St. Paul, Rosser, as you can appreciate, has all of Centerport in it. That's where majority of their tax base is sitting there, and they were only reducing it by 3% this year. And Headingley is been steady, and it's been growing, and as you know, Headingley has a large commercial base, and even though that they've been steady, they did reduce this year because of this increase, and they've done a 7.7% increase. So, as part of this, it's not only just about taxes, it's also cash flow management and making sure that you're being efficient and effective in your cash flow. And as part of that, since 2020, we have not had to rely on going to the line of credit. So as you can see, previous years in 2019, we did go, and previous years before that, but we've been steadily doing better cash flow management for the RM, and yet we've had very significant projects in the RM. So cash flow helps to pay for those projects in the past. You might have had some projects, but there wasn't enough cash flow to cover for those. We've been able to do some $47 million worth of projects since 2020 going into this year. And those projects, and that's not including some of the road works and DFA work. And normally we have to pay for the projects in advance and then borrow after when the project's done, and that's where the cash flow comes in. As you can see, there's been significant increases in it, and we will continue to monitor this. But 2024 was one of our challenging years. We did come close to the line of credit, and that was mainly because we had $5.5 million in DFA work, which we're not getting the money till this year for. So, along with that, moving to this next growth, which is targeted sustainable growth, increased sustainable growth in East Selkirk, Grand Marais, Henderson and East Lockport, as well as Lebo area. We've identified those as our major settlement areas, and we will continue, which is through strengthening the planning processes, looking at our zoning, and looking at our development approvals, proactively identifying attractive opportunities to increase housing options and employment lands, and looking at increasing the infrastructure. And so since then, we've had some great opportunities. Now we have employment lands on the corner of Highway 44 and 59. We have employment lands in our industrial park, and there'll be more employment lands hopefully coming in the future. Those are all very worthwhile because they remove the tax burden from residents. We're looking at removing barriers to sustainable growth and future expansion of the tax base, which has been happening on a regular basis. The RRM has become, we're not in a development moratorium like East St. Paul, because our infrastructure has been developed and has been planned out for the next 25 to 30, possibly 50 years. We've done incentives to attract the right kind of development, and so that was identified through a housing needs assessment, and that housing needs assessment identified the kind of development that was needed, and we've been attracting that through either expression of interest on our own lands or encouraging developers to come here. Communication and engagement strategy to accompany all that has been on an ongoing basis. We've been looking at more and more communication devices, such as we're also changing our website, changing our mechanisms of how we communicate with our residents. We're also looking at utilizing more technologies, such as our AI, to help with creation of different mediums that we'll talk about later as well. So next goal, as part of that, is the goal 3, which is the targeted sustainable growth. As I mentioned, we're doing zoning bylaw text amendments and bylaw updates. A building bylaw update will be happening at the next council meeting. East Selkirk water treatment plant upgrades and expansion has been critical, so that water and sewer are critical for helping to expand growth, especially in settlement areas. And water is critical as piped water systems in this northern region. And as you'll see that in the west, Headingley and them are city and water co-ops. There's a real advantage to sharing and working together as opposed to building these separate plants all over the country. Support subdivisions, streamlining approvals. We've been focused on economic development and supporting these subdivisions. We've been also strengthening the overall planning process with Red River Planning and supporting industrial park development, as I mentioned. Already seniors housing opportunities are being explored and actively marketed. We're marketing some of our surplus lands selectively and strategically for purposes of growth, and the right kind of growth that the RRM is looking for, and the removal of barriers to growth. So those are when somebody is looking to invest in the RRM, we're making sure that we provide a full concierge type service that we've been heralded about. Goal number 4, anticipate future needs. So it's not about taxes or infrastructure or permitting. It's also about the amenities and the quality of life in the RRM. And so anticipating future needs for amenities and services, focusing on recreation and key destinations with the goal. So we're evolving amenities and services to prepare for future needs in our changing communities, which is looking at investing more dollars in destination areas such as Grand Marais and Lockport. We've allocated funding available to those areas so that we can support the local businesses in those communities. We've also looked at expanding of services in those areas. With partners, we're looking at working with our regional partners to develop a recreation master plan. So we've developed a large recreation center off Donald Road that will be open this year. With that, there's an opportunity that if somebody else in the nearby community is building something, maybe they build something that we don't offer, and then we share in the use of those services, because that's what's important, is to continue to manage these types of infrastructure so that they're viable and continue to be viable as the population ages and moves and changes. We're looking at inventory of the natural and heritage assets that we've identified, and we've brought in a recreation manager who's been working very well with some recreation staff as well, and we've been providing more and more of those recreation services. We've increased the capacity within the RM for year-round programs for all ages. There's a lot more programs available for children now, and then we've been approached quite a bit in the last few years, especially after COVID, of how many parents are really looking for that physical space and people to provide that for them during the summer months. Enhance and promote water access. Our council has continued to commit $300,000 and continue to look for a viable location for water access, a water boat launch that can be placed in this side of the Red River. Now, next is, with that goal, is also looking at the needs and amenities and services focusing on key destinations. We continue to advocate and support for the community grants. We continue to provide specific grants to community and recreation projects. The grants that have been provided by the RM have continued to grow over the years, and they continue to grow. This year, we're also contributing $200,000 towards our recreation reserve. As I mentioned before, we have these reserves, and this allows us to keep that asset management. So as we grow these assets, there's money needed. We've also increased funding for things such as the East Selkirk Community Center, which was receiving $30,000 in support funding, and has been increased to $50,000 this year, so that they can deal with some of the challenges there are with the ice plant in their arena. We've also identified the $300,000 for the boat launch and a $6 million activity center, which should be open this June, I'm hoping, or July, the latest. So, strategic plan, goal 5, build diverse, resilient, and sustainable communities. That's the main goal. And so this is focused on community development through service improvements and dialogue with communities. This is improving public service through communication and operational efficiencies. So getting our residents more involved in the day-to-day operations of the community, getting more of those things, and that's where technology is being changed to be able to help accommodate that. We've added in a chatbot that's going to be added available for our website. So that chatbot will make it easier to search and find things. As we find our website, we'll be going live in the next week or so on our new website, which has a chatbot, which makes you an opportunity, which works completely, not like the chatbots that are available outside, but only within our RM data. So our residents can use it to be able to ask questions, and thank you, Councillor, ask questions and deal with any of those types of issues. We're also looking at, we brought in artificial intelligence to look at different mediums of communicating with our residents. So one is communication through social media, the other is through websites, the other is through podcasts that are becoming more popular for younger people. But we provide lots of information in detailed plans, but sometimes they're not always read. So now we're providing in other mediums so people can have an opportunity to watch those. We've created videos that are being AI used, and all it is factual information provided by the RM in order to just take what's already written in paper form, if somebody doesn't want to read it, to have another medium of choice to review those. We found that our Trails Master Plan was a wonderful podcast that's been put on our website that many people have downloaded and listened to as a way of understanding the Trails Master Plan. We noticed that there's more people that have listened to the podcast than the people that have downloaded the actual Trail Master Plan itself. But in the hopes that as more people are interested, as they see these new mediums, it'll become more. And the opportunity is, if we want to create diverse, resilient, and sustainable communities, we have to foster that type of communication with all our communities. We're creating a community that's going to be welcoming and foster sustainability within our community. So we are focused on increasing our garbage collection, our recreation programs, our cleaning up our community. We're engaging local residents for increased input and dialogue and build what needs to happen in specific communities and how can we work with them. There's dialogue, and council has this year also put in $300,000 to expand the possibility of the GMCC park so that more people that are looking to come in there, they have a waiting list so that we can increase the people that are utilizing our RM. So those are the big factors, and now let's go to the numbers. The numbers are, as you can see, the 2025 budget, as mentioned, the 2025 budget. So, as you can see, the municipal taxes are $10 million, 10.752, which has gone up, but this isn't an exact directly to the taxes. Some of that comes in from growth, and some of it comes in from different assessments, and some of it comes from increases, also from grants in lieu of taxes, so increases from other revenues. We have other revenues, which are grants that we receive from the province and the federal government, and then transfers of reserves. All that translates into an actual municipal budget of $28 million. So $10 million, 10.7 is collected for taxes when it's a $28 million operation. And that's where the transfers from accumulated surpluses and reserves goes in to pay for those project costs, such as a fire truck these days costs up to $1 million. And those are significant costs, so, as opposed to going in and borrowing the $1 million on a depreciating asset, we're saving our funding. And this year, I'm also very happy to report that we've been able to, the council had committed $315,000 a year on an annual basis to a reserve to pay for the fire equipment. And we've had some challenges in the last few years, so we've taken some accumulated surpluses from previous years, added it to that reserve, and now, and we were at a very difficult time where we were at a 20-year cycle of all our equipment having to be replaced. So all that equipment should be replaced in the next little while, and we are still in the positive side of it. Last year it was looking like we were going to have some challenges, and we would have had to need to find money from somewhere. But now we've been able to balance all that out, and what it looks like in the next 20 years, we'll be able to, with that commitment to fiscal management, that continued $315,000 will help to replace that equipment in the next 20-year cycle. So that's a very good news for that. It's the same thing with the road infrastructure with this 2 mil rate. It puts the roads into a positive situation. So we have a proper asset management line plan for all our roads. The expenditures, which balances against the revenues, it identifies the costs. These are the costs that when I showed earlier, that were the percentages and how we came to what an actual bill and how it translates to where are those costs going. So such as transportation services is 5.9. This year we've also increased staffing in public works to be able to also deal with any of the staffing shortages and be able to continue to have all our equipment on the road on an ongoing basis. And so then we get into the capital items. So as you can see, there's a lot of purchases that have been identified. Sometimes some things don't, with all best plans, these are budgets, and sometimes we don't get the opportunity to purchase that. As you can appreciate, these things are estimated costs, and sometimes they can be significantly impacted, like the tariffs. That's why we had to be fiscally prudent in how we managed our budget, because tariff costs can come in and Bobcat that was estimated at 35,000 could be significantly higher, depending on what happens in around us. As you can appreciate, we saw some of that happen after COVID, and we're very cautious in managing. So we've put in money towards specific projects. In Lockport, a sidewalk. So when there's work to be done, there's work to be done in Lockport for Highway 44 and Henderson Highway. A roundabout is being planned by the province of Manitoba, and so our intent is that we would then help to add into the amenities of active walking and transportation within that area. Baconia Well, there's been challenges in the Baconia Well side, and council has put $150,000 there to make sure that we keep that well running, as we've been negotiating with the province of Manitoba, and I'm happy to say that that we do seem to have a resolution with the province of Manitoba, and then we'll be able to continue to provide a pale fill station similar to the way it's always been intended since the 1960s, to continue in that fashion as we move forward. We've identified daycare utilities installed. This is a possibility of adding another daycare in the RM, similar to the one in East Selkirk, one in Lockport, closer to the activity center as a daycare, if the province continues forward with that program. And this is for the utilities that would be needed to make sure that that daycare continues, is viable there. You'll see things such as tandem sanders for $350,000. You'd see things such as a tanker in Narrow, and it's identified as $250,000. And it's really $500,000 for the tanker, but it's spread over 2 years because it takes at least 2 years to get them built. And that shows you the kind of risk that we have on some of these kinds of situations, because in those 2 years, prices could dramatically impact us. Along with that is the various borrowings that are coming forward. We've identified various borrowing bylaws. As I mentioned earlier, we do projects. Most of the projects through cash flow, we pay for them. Depending on if we're doing them with the Water Services Board, they pay for the interim financing side of it. And then once the project is done, then we go out and borrow as per provincial regulations, and then pay off those debts. And so what we have is the Water Control Works. This was originally the $3.5 million identified for all the drainage works throughout the RM back in 2018 or 19, I think it was. 2018, and majority of that work was done, and then we received $2.7 million in grants to finish up the rest of that work, so we were able to redivert that money towards other projects like the raw water upgrades and the river cross, or sorry, not the raw water upgrades, such as the twin force mains that were brought in. The South St. Clements Activity Center was originally budgeted or borrowing authority for $4 million, but utilizing the $2.7 million to also take advantage of that 2.7 of the building of the lake and everything else that we had to do, we were able to reduce that cost on ourselves by $2 million and redivert that. But now that the community center is complete, we have to pay our share, which will be $2 million, and $4 million of that is coming out from $2 million from the federal government and $2 million from the province of Manitoba. Landfill cell, which is the one I mentioned earlier, is $2 million there. The road renewal projects, which were the ones we identified in 2023, now that they're complete, we're moving forward with the borrowing that needs to be. This was already taken into consideration as part of the budget back in 2023. And the Lockport Water Reservoir, which is the project that was approved this year, along with the raw water upgrades and river crossing. So that's our $3 million of the $6 million that we need. So, as mentioned several times about our reserves, so this goes to show you how some projects are paid for out of various types of reserves, whether it's the general fund, the utility fund, or cash resources. And as you can see, the gas tax is used for debentures. We use the Public Works Reserve, we use, which has been the one that we've been building up outside of the 1 mil rate, or 1.1 now, for hard surface roads. There's also a capital works reserve of $950,000. Of that is going to be used to pay for all that equipment that I just showed you. So this goes to show you all these are available. This PowerPoint will be made available online. It's already available online, but it'll also be bundled together with the rest of our information that we bundled together for everyone. Along with that, we also do, Council, and this will be published as of tomorrow afternoon, is the budget overview document that kind of describes everything I've talked about today in the same sort of fashion so people can understand what we're presenting, because in the past, what we mostly showed was just the bylaw itself, and now what we're looking at is a better way of communicating so that people can understand what we're delivering. So, with those things, we're borrowing, so there's always a question, what does that mean to the RM? Well, that's, the province of Manitoba has strict guidelines on debt. It says, and this applies to all municipalities, this municipality is in a very good debt position, much better than a lot of municipalities, definitely much better than the large municipalities, and especially like urban centers, because they are running into debt ceilings that you'll hear about on a regular basis. The debt ceiling happens, it's 7% of your debt capacity. So the borrowing capacity, what they say is you can borrow up to 7% of your assessment base. Up to 7% of that assessment base is what. So think of it as 7% of your equity that you have. And so with that, the RM has only utilized 2.56% of that in borrowing. So we've stayed at a good financial position in case of any unforeseen emergency, which we hopefully not. The remaining is still $51 million worth of borrowing still available, and we don't plan to at any given time utilize that, but it's there. And that goes to show that this RM is in good financial position. And there is still, and of the payment capacity, there's still 11.27% left. So that means 2.2. So that's your, what is your income? So that is based on, you can have out of the taxes that you generate. So one is the assessment base, which continues to increase. So that what gives you 7% of that is what you can borrow. And then the other is how much taxes are you generating? Based on the taxes you're generating, you can borrow up to 20%, or you could pay, your payments can't be more than 20% of that. As you get a mortgage, they usually take a look at the same way as what's the income and what can you afford to pay. Same principle, we're in very good condition because 11.27% of that 20% is still available. So, but debt isn't just taxes. Taxes are collected to pay debt. Taxes are collected for various things, as I mentioned, but debt is the same thing. Debt isn't all paid from just general taxes. 35% of it is, at this point. That's where that debt ceiling comes into a factor. Then you have the utility rates. Any debt that's related with utilities is paid by utilities, and the utility rates help to pay for that. And as the utilities are building that, that's why we're doing a utility master plan this year, now that the utilities are complete. Then what we have is a local improvement district. So there are projects that are done only to benefiting those particular lands. So such as a lot of the infrastructure work done in East Selkirk, that was done. A lot of the infrastructure work that's being done in Lockport. All those are paid and collected by the local residents, by those property owners that are benefiting directly from that infrastructure. And in some cases there are various types of LIDs, special service levies. That's what City of Selkirk, I mentioned, is doing for transportation of fire protection services. But if we, Gull Lake, as an example, utilizes a local improvement district in order to collect funds to be able to create their watch station, so that they have a funding mechanism that everybody that benefits from it pays into it. We collect the money and then we give it to them so that they are able to administer it. Gas tax grant is another. So we get gas tax from the federal government. As part of that gas tax, we can utilize it to pay down debt. And as part of that, 31% of that is being paid on that. So we come to near the end. In 2025, Council continues to reduce future risks related to infrastructure costs by taking the 1 mill rate, which would have been $1,149,030.69 this year, to an additional commitment and a plan to go for the next 10 years at a reasonable level of increase of 0.1 mill rate. This is similar to what Winnipeg and other municipalities have talked about, that 3% or 3 mill rates are going directly to roads, as an example. So they say that they're going to increase. So we're saying we're going to guarantee the 0.1 every year for the next 10 years, just a 0.1, which will go only for roads and devoted to roads and nowhere else. And when it hits 2 mil, and when we took a look at our road plan, we're able to catch up and be able to get back into managing and maybe even identifying additional roads that could be delivered in the future. It addresses previous hard surface roads this year as part of that $3.5 million commitment that was made in 2023. Continue to stabilize the reserves from year-end surpluses to provide sufficient funds for capital projects and reserves. Support recreation in the RM with $200,000 for reserves and completion of the St. Clements Activity Center with a $6 million project. Commitment to a boat launch. We continue to support business community, $50,000 towards biz improvement zones. So for every cent that the local businesses are going to invest in public infrastructure, public amenities, the RM will balance that, match that 50 cents. We've been able to do that for some of these. Some of that money has been used for things such as the Ice Village that's been developed in Lockport over the winter. That's become very popular. So that's helped those businesses to come and develop programs which attracts more people to our community, which attracts more people interested in living here, and also helps the local businesses in that community. Deliver the next phase of the strategic regional infrastructure priorities. That's the $6 million in water projects. Continue to implement the 3-year budgeting strategy, which we've set, and so we're anticipating 2.1% decrease from 0.1, which is now for the roads. Increased services and budget for dust control, gravel roads, grass cutting, drainage, brushing, ditching. That increase has happened. The $300,000 increase is going to allow us to do 3 miles of roads, gravel roads and reconstruction, roads such as Pioneer and Old Henderson, and I think McKay were the ones done last year. And so we're continuing to do that as a way of bringing those shoulders in, rebuilding those roads, making sure that we continue to be on top. So it's not just a maintenance of one type of roads, it's a maintenance of all our road infrastructure. And as you can appreciate, we have hundreds and hundreds of miles of roads to worry about in the RM. Expansion of the landfill to a new cell construction, which is going to be a $4 million project, and $2 million in grants have already been received. And we're still applying. The advantage on that particular grant that we received is they said that we could stack. So we're also applying with that's a Province of Manitoba grant that we received. We've also applied with the federal government. If we get the approval from the federal government, it may cost us nothing, as an example. Significant capital for fire and public works equipment for all our fleet operations. As you saw the capital purchases there, there's millions of dollars of purchases from reserves and everything else that goes into deliver on this project, or in this budget for $28 million as a total. So, thank you, council members. This is my end of my presentation. The only other thing I wanted to mention is, as I mentioned, we are looking at various opportunities to communicate and deal with this and provide this information. So this is being recorded on Zoom so that all our residents have the flexibility. And what we found over the years is sometimes people aren't able to attend these meetings, but they do observe and play back, and we've seen that because we can see the counts and the downloads that are happening. So people are watching more and more of our council meetings as well as our budget meeting, and questions are still can be mailed into the RM, and our staff will diligently try to answer every question that comes in. Along with the Zoom is the recording that's been done through our regular recording of all our council meetings, and so that all that information can be used to figure out what I've been saying. But as you can appreciate, I've been talking for about an hour, and some people don't always like to listen for an hour, especially listening to me. And so along with that, what we've also done is that we've also, and I'm just going to share this for a second so that everybody can see, is to, we also created an AI video for the RM that will be also posted on our website starting tomorrow. And what this does, goes through the same explanation, but with somebody better looking than me as an avatar, and somebody that speaks much less, only 7
Yeah.
minutes and 32 seconds,
Much shorter.
and can cover most of the same things. So here's an example
Hello,
of,
everyone, and thank you for taking the time to learn more about the RM of St. Clement's 2025 financial plan. My goal today is to walk you through the key aspects of this plan, highlighting how it supports our community's vision and addresses our priorities for the coming year. This financial plan supports the direction set out by council in the municipality's strategic
I'll let
plan
people play it
for
themselves.
2025.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to show that it's
Okay,
available.
it's a roadmap
And as you can
that
see, it goes through it, talks about our finances.
and delivering various capital projects. The 2025 financial plan addresses all of these goals. Now, let's delve into some specific highlights. A significant focus is on roads.
So it
Guided
talks
by
about the
our
roads, it
20-year
talks about some of the same
road
things I talked
We are
about,
making
but
major
it summarized it,
investments in
so
road projects.
this gives an
A
opportunity to
total
somebody
of
else that may not have the same money. People are living busy lives, and there are different ways of making it available. We let everybody know that these are AI videos. I know there's been some confusion, some people have thought that we're spending
We are also
thousands and
investing
thousands of
approximately
dollars
$2 million
on creating these
in traffic
videos.
safety
We have not
improvements in
spent
East
even
Sudbury.
hundreds of dollars.
This year marks the completion of our
But
commitment to
it's
rebuild
factual based,
previously hard surface
Takes the
roads
information,
at
puts
an
it out.
estimated cost of
Factual.
$3.5 million to
So,
Okay, thank you for that.
thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll just change my share here. Back to the meeting, and this identifies, and as part of our borrowings, all the borrowings that were identified in the open house have been introduced, and a public hearing will be held for those borrowings altogether in the coming weeks.
Okay, and before we finish off today, I just wanted to say that we did receive 3 written submissions, and they are listed on our agendas. And I wanted to make sure that it got into the record that we did get 3 written submissions. And,
If I could comment
Sure,
on
go
that for a
ahead.
second, Madam Mayor?
yeah,
Yeah, we've received 3 written submissions. I know that all 3 are, I know one is definitely objecting, the other 2 were asking questions, and I know one of them, we've had additional communication with them. So when we prepare our entire package, that'll be sent over to the province of Manitoba, we'll be including our responses and back with them. We've always encouraged people to contact us in advance for any questions that they have.
okay. And I guess before we wind up today, I know that, you've been patiently waiting and listening, and I'm just wondering if you have any questions or anything that you would like to comment on, seeing as you took the time to be here this evening.
For sure. I guess I got a couple of things. I'm interested in knowing that council approves developments in the area. Do you have plans in place to determine the state of the roads so that they are repaired prior to approving developments? Because I live off of CIL Road, and it is a total mess. So you opened up Oak Ridge Road so that the development there has a huge amount of houses in it, and it's now using and utilizing CIL Road, and wasn't being done before. So the road is in very bad shape. And I wanted to know if it's part of the plan for gravel or repair, because right now it's got stones sticking out. We walk a lot, so we see it. It's like a soup where we can't walk in it as soon as there's slight rain. So I'm wondering what's the plan for CIL Road, seeing that you've approved and have developments going on, and the road is not sustainable the way it is.
The only thing is, though, every time it does rain, and it's a short little piece, it's from the main highway to Oak Ridge Road. And that's a horrible, it's just frustrating. And it would be nice if some kind of a good base was put there, so we can have a decent gravel, not this powder that gets wet. And
Yeah. Well, it's like a slough.
That's my only concern at this morning.
So I wanted to know if it's part of the graveling, because we've lived there since the beginning on Van Horn Road.
Okay.
And I have seen very little work done on that road. We get involved, nice big development has been opened up, and Oak Ridge Road was punched through, so we get a lot of traffic on CIL. And nothing has been done on that road, so I'm confused. I don't know what your plans are, because you have developments that you expect a certain level of road conditions when a developer puts in a road, but yet of all the RM roads are in very poor shape.
Well, I can tell you that this council has had many discussions on that exact piece of road that you're talking about, from Highway 59 to Oak Ridge Road. Now, we did talk about it for this year. We have only so many dollars that we can spend, so I'm going to turn it over to our CAO to see where we got with it. But before I do that, I would like to just get your name and your physical address.
Sure, it's Donna Cheddar, and I live on 73 Van Horn Road.
73 Van Horn. Okay, perfect. And I'll turn it over to Deepak to explain our deliberations, because as I say, we've talked about it not just this year, but in the previous 2 years, about that section of CIL Road.
CIL Road has been identified and continues to be identified as more work to be done. Every year we've kind of increased the budget on it as best we can. This year the council has approved, we've increased our graveling budget so that we are going to be putting in hard limestone throughout the entire RM, as opposed to doing traffic gravel and a mix of traffic gravel and limestone, so that should help strengthen some of those roads.
Yeah.
As well, some of the challenges are that it's a flat section there, and because of that, we're looking at crowning it better this year, and we're looking at doing a better job of bringing that in. Remember I mentioned about the 3 miles of roads that we're going to be building and reconstructing. That's one of the ones that's going to be brought back for council for further discussion, because CIL has continued to be. There's also been some discussions about possibly converting CIL into a hard surface road as a possibility because of the amount of usage. And it is a challenge. When developments come in, there's a development requirement. But previous roads that were there, the developer is not responsible for. And that's why we decided to increase our commitment in funding through this 1.1 million this year and more in the future, so that we can start addressing this specific issue. As we get growth, you need to sometimes create situations that can benefit that. Last year, there was a lot of discussions about how can gravel roads or hard surface roads, a maintenance policy. What's your maintenance policy on gravel roads? What's your policy on converting gravel roads to hard surface roads? What's your policy on overall maintenance of hard surface roads? Well, last year we created all of those policies, specifically because there was a lot of dialogue such as this at the budget. Several people came. Some people came to talk about McKay, some came to talk about Nanton, which is one of the complaints they're still there. They're unhappy, but the administration went out and created a policy. What is the traffic counts? What can constitute when the RM should invest additional funds to do these? And what triggers, what's an important road, and what's, and to create a fair system of measuring when these types of changes occur, so that it's not subjective. So it's based on objective criteria. That is the very first in RMs in this area. So that policy is the first that's been done. As part of that, we shared the policy. When we went out, we created the policy, we publicized it, we put it as a bylaw, we put it out there, and there was very little dialogue afterwards, unfortunately. And so as part of that, we also created some AI podcasts to talk about that policy, so people can get a better understanding how that policy is written, what it's there, it talks about it, and the opportunity is for people to come back and comment on it, and then we can refine it. What have we learned from it? And now, when there's a request coming to council, that can be analyzed. We do traffic counts, we do analysis, determining in an objective fashion does this constitute a requirement to upgrade this particular road?
Well, obviously, you're quite aware of it, it needs to be done. You're talking about hard surfacing. Make sure if you're hard surface, you better have a good base.
Yes.
Because if you don't, that asphalt
We've seen it all over the
will just disintegrate, we'll be back to spending a lot of money and not having it done properly.
or chewing it back up again to gravel.
Yes, and that's what's happened in the past, and it's not happening anymore. I'm saying today, and hopefully not after I'm gone. All I can speak for is today, and today that's not happening. We don't construct roads the way we were constructing them 15 years, 20 years ago. And it's unfortunate, but there's, you know, we've established very specific standards on how our roads are to be constructed, not only by developers, but also by the RM. And as an example, in the area of East Selkirk, council passed a policy saying there will be no more gravel roads allowed. So any new roads have to be hard surface, and they must meet certain standards. Because when you hit a certain amount of hard surface roads, you're not going to go in there and say, well, oh, now you can have a gravel road. Because we get into situations where there is roads where now developers come in and build half of the road as a hard surface road, but the other half is already occupied by residents and it's gravel. And who's going to pay for that now?
Taxpayer.
Always hand in our pocket. Another question I had is, I'm noticing you spent $6 million on the community center. What are the plans operationally to keep that operating in terms of money and who's paying for that? Because when I look at it, it's something that my husband and I won't use, but it's a lot of money. And I was on board for many years of a community center that had a really tough time in the city, getting people to help, work out, make it feasible, on and on and on. So I was quite surprised actually that we're spending $6 million. I know we were talking about recreation and things like that, but I look at it and I go, my tax money and others, I'm going, okay, great, you're doing that, but my roads are falling apart. So I have issues with that. That's how I look at it, because I always thought municipalities really should be really paying attention to the roads, because that's what we're on all the time. And that's why, you know, I'm happy that people will have that, but I'm looking who's operating that and who's responsible. Is there going to be a continuing operating cost that the RM is paying every year for that? Or are you going to try and do it through fees and things like that to collect money to pay back?
It'll be done through fees, through rentals, as well as staffing costs are being absorbed this year, and they're going to have a better idea of what those costs are, as well as there will be sharing of the resources. And there's a cost for any community centers, whether they're run by the RM or whether they're run through community groups, because even in Winnipeg or anywhere else that you may look at, there's also grants that are given. As I just mentioned, we are increasing the grant for this community center in East Selkirk to $50,000 a year. Now, there's revenue opportunities, things like that. That's what's going to be looked at. And as part of our asset management, we've, as I mentioned in the presentation, there's $200,000 being put in regularly to make sure that the buildings are kept up to appropriate service standards. Community centers are also a part of a community. And yes, people grow and change, and there's also a change in the community. But a municipality requires all service levels to be a municipality. And yes, if you saw the budget, you see that the most significant part of the budget is on roads and infrastructure.
What else did I have? I would like to give you a pointer, because I've been to other types of RM meetings and stuff. They've given an idea of a bunch of homes in the area, different assessments, and actually said what the taxes are going to be. So people get a better idea, because I find that, like, I've been in finance and stuff like that, so I understand what you're doing, and I was in an RM as a CAO, so I understand how it all works out. But there's a lot of people don't understand it, and I think when you're doing stuff like this, you need to do a little bit more meat and potatoes in terms of how it affects a $500,000 house or a $200,000 house or a $1 million house. If you do examples like that, people get a better understanding of what the taxes are going to be for them around that area. So that's one thing I would, I'm just a suggestion for you because I'm wanting this. And another thing, to know what is actually in the reserves. Because, you know, as RMs, you need to say, I've got, you know, how your reserves are all broken down, and because I can't see this when I'm looking at it, to try and get a better understanding of, we've got, you know, $1 million in the equipment reserve, or I've got, you know, in the recreation reserve, we've got 250,000, and this is what we've got, and this is what we're putting in every year, to get a better understanding of what's actually happening in the RM, because I was trying to understand it as we were going along, and it's, you know, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of figure out what's
I
happening.
appreciate that, and thank you. It's been done.
Okay, well, that's good.
It's
So
in
then
this
that made your
document,
financial
in this
good.
document here,
Perfect.
it tells you exactly what is sitting in each of the reserves. It shows each reserve, the capital improvement reserve, and it's sitting at the end of 2023, it shows from 2018 to 2025, it shows the growth and the reduction as we utilize the funds from those reserves. All of that information is available. As to the speaking to the properties, yes, but there's different challenges everywhere. I appreciate your comments, and I'll take them under advisements, but we did do a comparison for an average house, and what would the taxes be for that average house. Now, saying what's a $500,000 or 700,000, then there's also 3 school divisions in this community, so you'd have to then do the
But that's
comparison
only, I'm
of
only
each
looking at your
school.
tax. I'm only looking at my RM, not the school division taxes.
No, but
You know
many
what I mean?
people say
But-
you don't tell me, you're not telling me the
Yeah.
full story.
I mean-
So it's a matter of,
But you
it's a matter of
identify it.
opinion, but I don't want to argue.
Yeah, I don't want to argue with you either, but I'm just saying, it just gives me a better idea. So now I gotta go home, I'll get whatever page there and try and figure out myself what's what. And I guess my other question is, what's happening with the AMN and lobbying the province for allowing these school divisions to be out of control and just do this? Because we go from, you know, very small increases, and now they've got this, all of a sudden, hand all free-for-all. So I'm just wondering what council's going to be doing with the AMN to try and say, hey, you can't do this, because it's just absolutely ludicrous.
What's
Go
that?
ahead, go
Sorry,
ahead,
I'm just
Councillor
looking at it. You
Spicer.
know, at the AMM, usually RMs come together and go, hey, and have the education there, whoever's there, and nail them for this
With
kind
all
of
due
stuff, you know?
respect, and what happens?
Well, you gotta keep on going. No matter what, you still gotta make your peace, right? Because
I
I want to be
think- I think
comfortable in
everybody is
mind,
making their
I'm
peace.
telling you right now, because it's appalling. To allow that kind of increase when it's been slow going throughout, and all of a sudden now, oh yeah, free for all. Let's do what, you know,
Yeah.
just no accountability.
Can I also offer a little bit of advice?
Sure.
It'd be nice for residents, for a change, to contact the province of
Oh,
Manitoba
I will.
directly
Oh, yeah.
and say that you're the ones responsible for the school divisions.
Yeah.
And why are you allowing them to do that? Because what tends to happen is at every tax time, the onus is on the municipalities to do something about the school divisions when they have, but through
I get it.
making requests, through complaints, through all these other processes, to even challenging the school divisions, but none of the residents are attending, with all due respect.
Totally, I know
None of the
that. That's
residents
why we're
attend school
attending, we're
division.
attending to see what's going
Yeah.
on. Because now we're saying, okay, this is out of control. Like, we've got to figure out what's going on and see what's happening and hold people's feet to the fire. Because we elect people, right? So it's important to say, hey, we elect you, you're supposed to do certain things and keep things under control, right? So,
Agreed.
same with the trustees, we'll end up,
Yeah,
we'll
the school
contact.
trustees are HB.
Oh, yeah, totally. I'll be on the horn, just have a conversation with them because it's ridiculous.
Scott, did you want to
Yeah, I
comment?
think the last point you made is very relevant in this discussion. You know, you elected us also, yes, but the province was also elected.
Oh, yeah, I've already been in contact.
And what's happened here is you had one party that was trying to get school taxes off of the property bill, and they're no longer in power. And what's happened is there's been a significant shift, as the CAO alluded to. But your point is well taken. You know, there is a June district meeting coming up. I'm sure there's going to be some discussion about it because a lot of the municipalities, especially like ours, that are kind of abutting the city, because most of the city school divisions went up drastically.
Yeah.
And we're one of those with River East Transcona with a 29% increase.
Well, that's the other part of that, the
And-
cities, sorry.
And I think what the CAO has said is it would be wonderful if we had more residents also raising these concerns, but your point's well taken, we'll do what we can do. And we have asked the school division to come and have a chat with us so we can talk about these issues. So I think there's an opportunity here for a little bit of partnership to help. I mean, not just us, maybe some residents, maybe A&M, and then of course, you know, having a chat with the trustee also helps. But it is challenging, you know, from our perspective, for us to go directly to the school division. I mean, we don't have any, you know, we don't have clout really,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's irony, really. It's really irony. You collect it, take the heat, because I know I used to get tons of calls after tax time went out. And, yeah, I really understand it, but it's.
Well, they don't
yeah.
even want to come and meet with us. We've already asked them
Yeah.
for a meeting. They won't come.
Yeah.
Because they know it's coming.
Yeah, well, they know that they're gonna put their feet to the fire, you know.
It's not that we're not trying, it's
Yeah.
just that it's,
Yeah.
you know, like Scott said, it's,
Yeah. It's
we've
just
got
that.
no clout yet.
Yeah, they need to take it off property anyway. It's ludicrous. You got retired people that are trying to keep their homes, and they've worked all their lives for it. They don't have enough money when these kind of things go on. It's just ludicrous, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just my piece. But anyway, thank you so much for your
Thank you so
presentation.
much, yeah, thank you so much for coming out this
Yeah,
evening.
I'm disappointed at the turnout.
Yeah, well, you know, I must say that it's been probably a few years since we've had more than 2 people sitting in our chamber for our
Well, last year,
financial.
Last year, we had a full crowd.
Yeah, but it was for one reason.
That must have been a different reason.
Yeah.
It's always about money.
But
just
thank
go-
you very much for coming out this
Yeah,
evening.
sure.
Just goes to show how good a job we're doing, though, managing
Yeah.
the municipality.
I'm just gonna tell Caitlin what she wants to tell me.
Complacency.
Caitlin,
Yeah.
I just wanted, Caitlin, we have the recorder from the record on, so I'm just gonna, Caitlin, if you want any information or have any questions, can you get a hold of Deepak in the next day or so?
Can do.
Can do, okay, so she's answered. So with that, if there is nothing else that council or Deepak wants to discuss on the budget, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:23 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.